Hello, BookTube. Happy Friday on this cloudy, rainy, thundery Friday here in Denver. Sun's starting to come back out, but boy, we had some dark clouds roll in. The living room got so dark in here, and we could hear thunder outside. And Goldie, our chihuahua, is terrified of the thunder and came running over to me like, pick me up, pick me up. Poor baby. Anyway, guys, what is the purpose of this video? This is going to be round two betwixt Steve Donoghue and myself. This is Has Steve Read It? Season 2, and I am stepping back into the ring to see if I can do better than my one. Did I have one bean or two beans last year? God, I think it was only one. I really feel confident of this assortment. Now, let me just say this first off. I'm a person that really abides by rules, right? I'm the type of person that if the crosswalk has a red light and there's nothing around for miles and people start going across, I stand at the corner and I won't go. I'm like, you're not supposed to cross right now. So when Steve laid out his rules, I was like, okay, I will abide by these rules. So with these selections, I was very much trying to thread the needle between esoteric, but definitely trying to avoid the a-hole pick, right? The so obscure book that no one would ever want to read type of thing. I don't know. I've heard a couple of those out there, but I'm not going to throw out an esoteric read. I'm just not going to do it because that is the rule. So I thank you.
You make yourself sound so joyless. She's not like that, guys.
I am full of joy,
You are full of joy.
but I am not going to give him a book about underwater lesbian basket
I
weaving.
want that book.
Maybe for Christmas I'll get it for you.
Not just a book,
It's not.
graduate degree program.
It's an undergraduate degree program as well. Look, I'm not trying to, be that person that's just like, yeah, I just won't do it. So these are fairly mainstream, and so at the risk of losing again, I'd rather lose again than have something so ridiculous. So, any hoodle. I'm rocking my history nerd t-shirt to really, give me some mojo, give me some luck. Check this. See?
Thanks. You are a nerd, though. It's true.
I am a big nerd. I am the nerd who will not cross at a crosswalk when
Everybody else is 10 miles down.
when everyone's 10 miles down the block and I'm back there getting mugged, I guess my survival instinct is not very good. Well, no, I guess it would be, though. I don't cross when it says not to. So, whatever. Okay. All right, guys, are we ready? Now, this was going to be in one of my new videos about some used books I've hauled recently. So, this is not one I've read, but, I love Russian history. I love getting into the weeds of Russian history, all aspects, right? And, I've been really getting some interesting titles lately. And I came across this one. I'm trying to remember how I came across this title, but I picked it out thinking Steve hasn't read it, but you know what? I'm thinking he has. It's too late now. It's too late now. Anyway, Steve, have you read Lord and Peasant in Russia from the 9th to the 19th century by Jerome Bloom? All right, this is an old book. I got it off Thrift Books. You can see a sticker's still on it. It's so old. There's no description in the dust jacket, but this one's pretty beat up. It's okay, but it's a little dirty. I'm finding a couple of highlights in here, but that's all right. I'll just read you a quick blurb that someone wrote about this book, right? Must be recognized as the most comprehensive the most reliable and the most readable history of the institution of serfdom in Russia, from its origins up to the point at which the serfs were finally given their legal freedom. Dr. Bloom's book stands in the best tradition of American historical writing, being designed not only for the specialist but also for the general reader who wishes to deepen his understanding of the modern world through a study of its historical roots. Although Dr. Bloom has given due weight to economic factors, he has never lost sight of the human beings who were the living reality behind the statistics. The reader who is seeking for enlightenment on some of the basic factors in Russian history will find Lord and Peasant in Russia a trustworthy and absorbing guide. Okay, so Jerome Bloom, I'm guessing he's probably not alive anymore, but you never know. He was the Henry Charles Lee Professor of History at Princeton University, and is also the author of The Emergence of the European World and the European World Since 1815. Lord and Peasant in Russia was awarded the Herbert Baxter Adams Prize of the American Historical Association in 1962. So, you know what? Yeah. At first I thought he hasn't read it. Now I'm thinking he probably has read it. All right. Well, we'll take our chances.
Don't be overconfident.
Don't.
Anyway.
I'm not. I'm not going to be overconfident.
Don't get braggy.
Okay. Oh yes, and this was a very recent a book I just acquired. I had to order it used. It's mostly a UK. I think it's mostly found over in the UK. It's published by Helion. But there is a good chance that Steve has received a. He might have received a review copy of this, and I'm trying to remember where I saw this book. And I'll be very embarrassed if I did first hear about this book off Steve's channel. But anyway, or it might have been actually one of my military history magazines. So I might have a shot with this one. Okay, guys, fingers crossed, right? Here we go. This is In the Eye of the Storm, George V and the Great War by Alexandra Churchill. Published by Helion. Let me go ahead and move this microphone a little back so we can have some room here. This is all about King George V's experience in World War I, which is one of my favorite historical topics. And lately I've really been getting into the royals, just the history of the royals. You know, I bought a biography on King George VI. I bought one on King Edward VIII. I don't know. I was getting into it even before Prince Philip died. But then that whole thing just kind of got me more and more interested in just the British monarchy. So
Watched the press conference after Ballymurphy, and you were like, well, maybe no, not so much.
right. Well, we're going to get to that in a second. Actually, I do have a book I selected to pay homage, in a sense, to Ballymurphy, which was in the news recently. We'll get to that. But this book says George V was largely an unknown entity to both his ministers and his people at the outbreak of war in 1914. By the end of the decade, he had become the most visible and accessible sovereign in British history. He had survived the crash of thrones that toppled his cousins, the Kaiser and the Tsar. Pioneering modern public relations, he had not only established the House of Windsor in name, but in the hearts of his people, establishing a blueprint for the modern monarchy that is still followed today. This is interesting. In-depth coverage of George V's war work wipes out assumptions about his capability as a sovereign and his suitability for the role, and reveals the reality of Nicholas II's possible asylum in Britain following the Russian Revolution. The image of the King and Queen Mary as distant, cold parents is debunked in full, and the book also includes the never-before-seen truth about their youngest son, Prince John. Fascinating. To mark the 100th anniversary of the armistice, the King's War legacy is examined. He played a key role in the introduction of the 2-minute silence and the unveiling of the cenotaph. He was the chief mourner at the burial of the unknown soldier and became the first battlefield tourist when he toured the Western Front in the company of those that won the war. Battlefield pilgrims today are walking in his footsteps. So, I hadn't read anything about... I've read King Kaiser Czar, which was a fantastic book about the cousins, and in the run up into World War One. But this one really goes into his involvement in his country's, World War One, his role, his activities. We've got lots of cool photos in the center. Yeah, so this one, and let me see when this came out, because the other book was like from 1962 or something. All right, so this is a very recent book. This came out in 2018, so it's about 3 years old. And curious to know, nice picture on the back there, if Steve has read In the Eye of the Storm. George V and the Great War. Okay, now the rule was 8 books, so got 6 more to go. Okay, are you laughing at me back there? Because of the rules? All right, let's go with this book. Since we just mentioned, I don't know if you guys follow global news at all, but... Oh, I thought I heard someone at the door. We're expecting a very special delivery. It's the delivery of my long overdue Christmas gift, which was... We were not able to procure it, and we kind of feel like we just won the lottery. What is it? It's a PlayStation 5. It does require a signature. It's shipping today. She bought it 2 days ago. She was in a waiting room for it, in an online waiting room, and it was all by random. She has tried so many times to get this thing, but as soon as they drop more supply, the bots and everyone pick it up, and then they're just out of stock. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But we scored. So that's... actually, it's going to be my Christmas gift from last year and my birthday gift this year. Because my birthday's in June. Yeah, it's every major bank holiday rolled in one. So recently on the news, this has to relate to Irish and English and British history, I guess. There was I don't know a lot about it, and I'd like to read more, but there was a massacre of some innocent people in Ballymurphy, Northern Ireland, in 1971, and the Irish victims were killed by the British Army, who I guess did a cover-up, claimed they were all gunmen or gunwomen, and just horrible things. Their families had to live with this all their lives, and they gave a press conference because the coroners, they were doing an investigation of it, I guess, and there is a documentary out, I think, on Prime Video if you want to check it out, about Ballymurphy. A coroner did a investigation, I guess, of the wounds or the bullet. They
exhumed the bodies.
They
It sounded like
they exhumed the bodies.
An ongoing struggle, and there had been
Yeah.
other people looking at it, at least for the families.
Yeah, people have been, representatives of the families have been on this case for a while trying to get justice. Anyway, the coroner's investigation indicated that these people were indeed just murdered. They were innocent. Although at first I'm like, how does a coroner claim innocence? But I guess it has to do with the ballistics. And a lot of the folks were shot in the back.
And the witness accounts.
And paired with witness accounts. So it was a very moving press conference at the family members and descendants of those who died in 1971. Were claiming, we're saying that we're glad we're getting, the British people, the British government is acknowledging the fact that this happened. But I guess Boris Johnson was giving amnesty to the people or the regiment that inflicted or were responsible for this. So anyway, it's a very contentious topic, and I do hope for peace for those families that have fought for so long to clear the name of their loved ones. So in the spirit of just Irish history and Irish people, I chose this book, and Steve Donoghue is. I think he's probably has read this one. I wonder why am I choosing this now? But because I wanted to, just because I wanted to. But this is Ireland by Gustave de Beaumont. Beaumont, with an introduction by Tom Garvin and Andreas Hess. It's a really good history of Ireland. It's not too massive, but it's a good starting point. It's about 400 pages. The book came out in 2006. So I'm get Steve Donoghue, being of Irish extraction, may have read this, but I am gonna gamble that he has not. That's crazy, right? I'm a risk taker. But it's just the Ballymurphy thing happened this week, and I'm like, I'm picking this book. I am picking this book, and I love the cover. Isn't that a great picture on the painting of the expression on the woman's face says it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. That's supposed to be a really good book.
Yeah. Oh. So you know about it. If Martine knows about it, then Steve definitely is.
Really good book.
Well, we have it. We have it on the shelves here at the History Shelf. Anyway, you guys should check it out. Apparently, this is a very well-known book.
According to one person.
According to my
According to the one person who wanted to ask Steve if he'd read Everybody Poops. So.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he has. Steve, in case you didn't hear that, my significant other, future.
Well, unless this changes
my mind, wanted to ask you if you have read a book called Everybody Poops. It's her, not me. Her, not me. She says everyone should read that book. Anyway, okay, so we're 3 books down, and we're only 16 minutes. And we're having a little fun here today on a Friday. So Ireland. All right. This one I'm gambling on that he hasn't read this. This is less history and more of a essays, I guess you'd say, about publishing industry or political thought, philosophy. Anyway. All right, this is A Few Reasonable Words, Selected Writings by Henry Regnery. And it's put out by Independent Studies Institute, I believe. As many of you might know, there is a publishing house called Regnery. It's founded by Henry Regnery. It says right here, I'll just read this real quick. Henry Regnery has earned a distinguished and lasting place in the annals of American publishing. As a longtime independent publisher, he founded the Henry Regnery Company in 1947. He sought to make available to the reading public the works of great writers that might otherwise not have appeared in print. He understood that the power of words and the responsibility of writers are absolutely interdependent, and the books that appeared under his imprint amply reflected this truth. The books he published were essentially, though not exclusively, conservative in orientation and focused largely on acute philosophical, educational, literary, religious, socio-political, economic, and cultural issues, especially as these related to the modern era in the years immediately following World War II. Let's see here. Some of the European and American authors whose writings he published were those of religious thinkers like Max Picard, Romano Guardini, and Gabriel Marcel, of literary artists like Ezra Pound, Wyndham Lewis, and Roy Campbell, of socio-political critics like Montgomery Belgian, Raymond Aron, and Ernst Junger, and of literary and cultural critics like, I've never heard of this person, Eliseo Vivas, Richard M. Weaver, and Russell Kirk. We've all heard of Russell Kirk. So, A Few Reasonable Words, the title given to this book, captures the spirit of the author's intellectual preoccupations. Appropriately, it describes a writer who deliberately avoids ideological extremes, who counsels clear and disciplined thought, who speaks in sensible terms and tones, always forcefully but also always restrainedly. The title also crystallizes the moral measure of an author who presents to his reader a selection from the various essays he has written over the years, possessing, as he does, both a keen historical sense and an active moral sense. Oh, sorry, ISI is Intercollegiate Studies Institute. So they published this book, and this book came out in 1996. Some of the essays in here are just, stuff that I just eat up. I just love a good essay. Got historical revisionism in World War II, part 1, part 2. Got one on Winston Churchill, A Question of Leadership. He has a chapter or an essay on T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and Wyndham Lewis, A Creative Friendship. George F. Kennan, A Gift to America. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, The Man and the Problem. So, some interesting essays written by Henry Regnery, a publishing, magnate, I guess. Well, it wasn't a huge company, but definitely created his own, imprint and left his mark. So, yes, Steve, have you read this book? Four left. Let's go. All right. This is a University Press book. You guys know I love University Press books. And I know that Steve receives a lot of them and reads very broadly in University Press releases. This goes back to my love of Russian history. So there might be, a little bit of a inclination in some of these books here to reflect that. So this, did I say University Press of Kansas? And this book came out 2019, so it's only 2 years old. So I'm really hoping that I picked a winner. This is right off my shelf. This is The Imperial Russian Army in Peace, War, and Revolution, 1856 to 1917, by Roger R. Rees. Beautiful, beautiful book. I'll give you a little synopsis here. In December 1917, 9 months after the disintegration of the Russian monarchy, the Army Officer Corps, one of the dynasty's prime pillars, finally fell. A collapse that, in light of World War I and the Bolshevik Revolution, historians often treat as inevitable. The Imperial Russian Army in Peace, War, and Revolution contests this assumption. By expanding our view of the Imperial Russian Army to include the experience of the enlisted ranks, Roger Rees reveals that the soldiers' revolt in 1917 was more social revolution than anti-war movement, a revolution based on social distinctions within the officer corps, as well as between the ranks. It goes on a little further, but you get the gist. This was one of the ones I'm like, okay, I'm really, really betting that he hasn't. I really hope he has not, but we'll see. The Imperial Russian Army in Peace, War, and Revolution, 1856-1917. Okay, and then also I had to have a Civil War book in here. But it couldn't just be, obviously, Gary Gallagher or James McPherson. It's got to be a challenge, right? Here's one of the generals I've always been really, I've always had a soft spot for. I don't really go in for the revisionism, saying that he was some superb general. I think he was very capable. I think he was a competent, capable general. Not the worst, but not the best. But Lord knows the Union Army needed as many capable, slightly talented, competent generals. And this is Mead, The Price of Command, 1863 to 1865, by John G. Selby. And this was put out by the Kent State University Press, so another University Press book. This one is fairly new. I know that I've made an acquaintance on Twitter that she is working on a full-scale biography on Mead, and I cannot wait for it to come out because we really do need a full-scale. We what? We need Mead. We need a Mead biography. This one is just focused solely on the 2 years, but in his as leader of the Army of the Potomac. But let me just read you a synopsis of this real quick. George Gordon Mead has not been treated kindly by history. Victorious at Gettysburg, the biggest battle of the American Civil War. Meade was the longest-serving commander of the Army of the Potomac, leading his army through the brutal overland campaign and on to the surrender of Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia at Appomattox. Serving alongside his new superior, Ulysses Grant, in the last year of the war, his role has been overshadowed by the popular Grant, which is true. This first full-length study of Meade's 2-year tenure as commander of the Army of the Potomac brings him out of Grant's shadow and into focus as one of the top 3 Union generals of the war. Interesting. You know, he was known to have a rarely hair-trigger temper. Well, not even hair-trigger. He could be irritable. And people called him the snapping turtle. Martine likes him already. Yeah, he could really go off on people. He could be a little bit harsh at times and just cranky. Just cranky. Snapping turtle. Let me see what else he says here. John G. Selby portrays a general bestride a large army he could manage well in a treacherous political environment he neither fully understood nor cared to engage. Yeah, I mean, Meade got a bad rap after Gettysburg. Everyone thought, follow up, Lee's retreating. But the realities on the ground are often, you can't look at a piece of paper and say he should have followed up and wiped out Lee. The elements of the Union Army were exhausted. I mean, it's 3 days of nonstop fighting and that brutal heat in July. They had really just barely staved off Pickett's charge. And to try to organize and then just follow up and crush Lee, it was really unrealistic. So I never agreed with people that were like, it was Meade's fault. You could have ended the war right there. Well, again, reality's on the ground. Trump. I hate saying that word now, but it's a great word. It's a great word, a verb. It's a verb. She's having fits over there. Trump, the realities of the political paper. I know. I need to find another word for that. Outweigh. The realities on the ground outweigh just the facts on paper, anyway. So yeah, Meade. I do like him. I think, and he found a way to work with Grant, knowing that Grant kind of overshadowed him and took the spotlight. But he was just a good soldier, and he did his duty. And so I like Meade a lot. I don't think he was a genius, but I think he was the right man at the right time, in the right place. He was humble enough to work with Grant, even though he was a bit of a snapping turtle. Anyhow, okay, 2 more books for Steve. Sun's coming back with a vengeance. About time. All right, this book is more mainstream. I mean, it's a mainstream, but it's not by University Press. This book is more of like religious history. This came out in 2016 it's put out by Pantheon. And this appeals to my interests, obviously. This is Apostle. Travels Among the Tombs of the 12 by Tom Bissell. And I just love this cover. I just love it. Apostle. So this is all about the 12. A profound and moving journey into the heart of Christianity that explores the mysterious and often paradoxical lives and legacies of the 12 apostles. And let's see, Peter, Matthew, Thomas, John. Who were these men? What was their relationship to Jesus? Tom Bissell provides rich and surprising answers to these ancient, elusive questions. He examines not just who these men were and weren't, but also how their identities have taken shape over the course of 2 millennia. Let's see, he travels from Jerusalem and Rome to Turkey, Greece, Spain, France, India, and Kyrgyzstan, vividly capturing the rich diversity of Christianity's worldwide reach. Let's see, along the way, he engages with a host of characters: priests, paupers, a Vatican archaeologist, a Palestinian taxi driver, a Russian monk, posing sharp questions that range from the religious to the philosophical to the political. It is a religious, intellectual, and personal adventure fit for believers, scholars, and wanderers alike. So yeah, let's see who Tom Bissell He's written several books. He wrote the Disaster Artist. I haven't read anything else by this guy. So anyway, I thought I'd throw this into the mix and see if Steve has read it. And if he has, let me know what you think of it. Okay, well, I hope you're finding that none of these books are so extremely esoteric or off the map that, again, I took the risk of being wrong as opposed to looking like I was trying to get an a-hole pick, because that's just not who I am. I don't do that. Okay, last book. I have an interest in this country, and it goes back to a couple of years ago when I started reading about this country, and I wrote a book review of a book called Magdalena by Wade Davis, and I loved it, and I wanted to know everything about this country's history. And I've been acquiring books since then and reading them. This book came out it's put out by Nation Books. This came out in 2018. So these are mostly newer books with a couple of older ones. So the final book I chose for this Has Steve Read It Season 2 challenge is There Are No Dead Here, A Story of Murder and Denial in Colombia by Maria McFarland Sanchez Moreno. Or Moreno. Okay. Colombia's drug-fueled cycle of terror, corruption, and tragedy did not end with Pablo Escobar's death in 1993. Just when Colombians were ready to move past the murderous legacy of the country's cartels, a new bloody chapter unfolded. In the late 1990s, right-wing paramilitary groups with close ties to the cocaine business carried out a violent expansion campaign, massacring, raping, and torturing thousands. There Are No Dead Here is the harrowing story of three ordinary Colombians who risked everything to reveal the collusion between the new mafia and much of the country's military and political establishment. Jesus Maria Valle, a human rights activist who was murdered for exposing a dark secret. Ivan Velasquez, a quiet prosecutor who took up Valle's cause and became an unlikely hero. And Ricardo Calderon, a dogged journalist who is still being targeted for his revelations. Their groundbreaking investigations landed a third of the country's Congress in prison and fed new demands for justice and peace that Colombia's leaders could not ignore. There Are No Dead Here is an unforgettable portrait of the valiant men and women who dared to stand up to the tide of greed, rage, and bloodlust that threatened to engulf their country. So, that is my final selection. I'm looking. Whoop! Who walked by? Was that Boomer? Little cameo for you, Steve, of Mr. Boomer. All right, so these are my 12. Let's see if I can hold them up for the camera. Let me see if I can do it. These are some heavy books, my friends. I'm going to step away from the microphone for a second to show you the stack. Whoa. All right. Woo! Okay, well, fingers crossed that I did better than last year. Again, I think I only had one bean last year, maybe two. I want to win this. You don't even know.
Everybody poops. Everybody poops is going to be the dark horse that takes it.
Okay, that's what Martine says.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe her pick was a winner. I don't know. All right, guys. 34 minutes. I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to upload this and post this tonight. And hopefully in a couple days, we'll have Steve's response. And hopefully it'll bring tears of joy.
Well, he insulted me last time, so you can't, we can only go up from there.
What do you mean he insulted you?
Galactic Warlord. He's like, what a piece of crap.
Galactic Warlord?
Yeah.
Did he say it was a piece of crap?
In so many words.
Oh.
I was like, that's the treasure of my youth.
I don't even remember that. Yeah. Apparently in my first video from a couple years ago, I threw in at the end a book that Martine had fond memories of as a kid. Was it Galactic Warlord? I don't know. I don't even know who the author is, but hey, Gidget has something to say. But apparently, Steve said it was a bunch of garbage. Martine was like, "Excuse me."
It's my
It
bunch
was
of garbage.
it was her bunch of garbage from her childhood, and she has fond memories. Don't we all have fond memories of our individual piles of garbage when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
Right. All right, guys. Well, it is Friday. I hope you guys are reading good stuff. Hey, I got a new phone, which means I can actually be mobile and do videos on my phone. I have a new iPhone 12. I was working off of an iPhone 6S, so if that tells you how long I have made that 6S last, I went through several different models, I guess. But anyway, I am ready to do some vlogging, take this upstairs and show you some of the books I'm going to be but like moving and packing, unpacking. It's going to be exciting. I've got a little handheld thing I can screw this onto and just kind of like zoom around, and this has memory because the other one was just my old phone was definitely dying. It there wasn't even enough memory to do a software update, so I just ignored it. Just ignored the warning that I did.
How'd that work for you?
It didn't. It didn't work for me. So I went and I just finally I couldn't even play like podcasts in my car. It was just like no media files, and the thing was it was just done. It had lived its life. The 6S had done a great job, but now I've got nice new blue colored iPhone 12, and I'm gonna see about just filming on here and uploading it directly to YouTube. So I don't have to be static sitting. I have to sit down at this desk and do this. I can be. It is crazy. I'm finally getting hip. Well, I'm not getting hip, but I'm doing what the kids are doing these days, which is going mobile with the footage, which hopefully will be more fun for you guys as well. So that's another little update I meant to tell you. So I'm excited about the new media prospects for my channel as far as change of venue, maybe vlogging, book vlogging, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Okay, guys. Anyway, Steve, yeah, this is for you. I'm looking forward to hearing your answers.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Fingers and toes crossed.
I'm gonna go spend the weekend trying to get Peggy to jaywalk. That's how we live.
She's gonna. I don't know if you heard that. She said she's gonna try to spend the weekend getting me to jaywalk.
That is just how we roll.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna happen, but I appreciate the effort. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there is my 8 picks for Steve, following his rules that he laid out to the T, and we'll see where that takes us. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Bye, BookTube.